Hello, my name is Savion Hosh from Natural State Community College. I go to the Occupational Therapy Assistant Program. I am my scrubs. Here's my ID. And for my fieldwork placement, I went to Williamson County School. I went to Longview Elementary School. Okay, so for the first question, it talks about task analysis and critical thinking. So for this, I'm going to talk about the group session that I had at Summit High School. For that section, we got together in a group. It was about me and four other people, and our task was to make a pizza. So when observing that, I did think about the task analysis of what it takes to make a pizza. You need to have all the ingredients, have the environment to make a pizza. Like you need the microwave and the tools like the knives and the spoons. And you need sequencing. You need to do everything in the correct order. Um, the cognitive ability and basically being able to listen to instructions. And I guess some physical requirements like you need to have the grip strength and the coordination to spread the sauce on the pizza, and the fine motor skills to grab the cheese and sprinkle it, and I guess the ability to pick up and chew with your mouth. So you need the structures, range of motion in your arms, and the strength in your mouth and your hand. So that's what I observed for that activity. And there's some social participation to that because it's a group activity. So this going around having fun with each other, making pizzas, and communicating. So how I would adapt and modify the environment to make it easier for them is to the number of people in the room and how quiet the room is. Like it was only me, the OTA, and the students in the room, so it's very quiet and not loud and not that many distractions. Um, yeah, and everything was prepared for them before them entering the room, so they didn't have to go into the fridge and grab the stuff out the fridge. And yeah, okay. Okay, so for the second question, it goes over adapting tools and materials. So during my fieldwork, I was very curious about the AT, the assistive technology. Um, so one patient had cerebral palsy, and she wasn't able to coordinate her movements very well, and she had limited range of motion. Well, I would say limited range of motion, but she wasn't very coordinated. Um, so for recess, she wasn't able to play. So instead, we got a assistive technology to make her play. It was a switch that was hooked up to a bubble machine, and so when she was to press the button with her hand, it would blow out the bubbles. So that was a good substitute to so she'd be have the ability to play. Um and the technology was fairly safe. It was just a bubble machine, and she was in her walker while she was doing the activity. So we ensure her safety during the transfer. It was a two-person transfer. I didn't know that she needed to do that for a walker on a small child. So I did learn that during my fieldwork experience. Um, yeah, and they just use AT to help her with her activity. Okay, so for the third question, it talks about environmental modifications. Um, so for this, the most common diagnosis was autism. So they had a very hard trouble regulating their emotions and their sensory input. So one thing that I would change about their environment is that the client will sometimes go into like the OT room and help regulate themselves. I also learned about the sensory diet they will have. Like sometimes they will go in the hallway and do some running or probably like jumping jacks before they go to class. And for the environment, this is somewhere quiet. Like in the hallway, there's not that many kids or it's not as loud because the classroom is very noisy. So in the hallway, it's not that noisy. So they're able to get that sensory input a lot better and help regulate themselves in a more quiet environment than they would in the classroom. And yeah, that's what I would change. I also would put them in the OT room because it's a lot quieter. It has calming music and like a swing in there to help regulate themselves. Okay, so for the fourth question, it talks about psychosocial engagement and ability/disability. So some psychosocial issues I have with some clients that have autism is that sometimes they get overstimulated and they would like grab people, fight people, and that's not good. So basically, to help prevent that, what they do is back to the last question, help regulate them and calm them down and try to get some of that sensory input out of there, some with their sensory diet. So I believe with one patient they was like getting on their back a lot, so it helped to get that sensory input released. They would get like a scooter, and then that patient would like roll on their back on that scooter to help stimulate them or help regulate them. I shouldn't say stimulate. Um, but yeah, that would how I pretty much answered that question. Okay, question five. Question five asks us the impact of psychosocial engagement on performance. So this kind of still goes back to the fourth and fifth questions. I would say, well, I went to a school, so the purpose of them going to school is to learn and just do activities about learning and playing. So if they're too unregulated, they're not going to be able to learn. So the purpose is to help regulate them and help adapt them so they're able to learn and do the activities in their curriculum. Um, so to do that, they just give them that sensory diet. Like before class, they will do some jumping jacks or like run in the hall where it's a quiet environment. And before doing this, they will communicate with the teacher to see if that's okay for them to do. If not, they could probably like work something else out. So that's some strategies to help do that. Um, some other strategy is just working with assistive equipment, like their walker, of course. Sometimes they'll have the scooter, like I kind of mentioned in the last question, or they also have like weighted blankets, weighted pillows, or like a vibrating pillow to help regulate them. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah. Okay, for the sixth question and the last question is kind of going over everything and combining everything from the first to fifth question. So with test analysis, basically just understand what activity that you're doing and what the the activity, and understanding that your patient's deficits and diagnosis to perform that task, and also that's very important with the environment uh, adaptations, um, like how quiet is the setting, who's in there, um, are you gonna get any help from PT or the teacher assistants, um, and the psychosocial engagement. Um, are there other kids? Is it a group activity? Um, yeah, and if is that kid get kind of physical when he's not regulated, or how do they respond to being not regulated? Some innovation be like just knowing what that kid likes. Like I know one patient really likes strawberries, so we just did an activity for her eating and making strawberries. Not eating the, like I was gonna say Play-Doh, but she's not eating the Play-Doh, but she would make strawberries out of the Play-Doh and eating actual strawberries. So some innovations like that. Um, but yeah, some things I learned is that all that stuff is important and ties together, and it does influence the future practices by basically seeing what works and what doesn't work. I would say it depends on the patient. So question 6, it says, "What's the outcome? What did she learn from the experience that will influence your future practice?" And I said, this I would say trial and error, see what works and what doesn't work. Um, so for most of the elementary students, they're still figuring things out. So some students like running the hallway doesn't really work out for them, or like maybe it'd be better for them to like play with Play-Doh, and I think they'll just figure that out once they get older. Because once I did the high school students, there was a lot calmer and it was like a lot easier to figure out what was working better for them. So that what I think that will influence future practices, just a bunch of trial and error. And also that's why it's so important to document everything, because once a student is transferring to elementary school to middle school and to high school, they need that documentation to figure out what is working and what is not working.